Former Republican presidential nominee and all-around douchebag Rick Santorum was on Meet the Press this weekend, and he had an interesting little tidbit that he dropped on all of us. Us politicos are now just responding. This is what he said. I'm open to looking at a presidential race in 2016, but we got a little ways. We got elections in 2014. Now, of course, that was to some degree prompted and all of that, but is anyone really surprised that Rick Santorum wants to run again for the presidency, or at the very least wants to be seen to be running so that he can get on the major mainstream news shows, so that he can maybe write a book and give his speeches and things like that? I'm personally not surprised. Now, I'm not going to say too much about my own personal opinions about Santorum. It looks like in the near future we're going to have many opportunities for me to display them to you. If he does decide to run, I will, every week if possible, rip him a new one. And so for now, I'm going to just read you some of the most choice tidbits, some of the most offensive comments that Rick Santorum has ever given on a number of different subjects, and I will let him, I suppose, do all of the talking for me. And so, let's start with on the Catholic Church's child abuse scandal. Priests, like all of us, are affected by culture. When the culture is sick, every element in it becomes infected. While it is no excuse for this scandal, it is no surprise that Boston, a seat of academic, political, and cultural liberalism in America, lies at the center of the storm. You idiot, this has been going on for hundreds of years in multiple countries around the globe. There's tons of this going on in Ireland, by the way, which, as far as I know, is not a seat of academic, political, and cultural liberalism. Very Christian, very conservative society in many ways. No problem with Ireland, I'm just using them as a counterpoint. And I love that, yeah, I guess they raped children, but it is Boston after all. And so a lot of empathy coming out of Santorum there. Next, on same-sex marriage and bestiality, the link that he sees there. In every society, the definition of marriage has not ever, to my knowledge, included homosexuality. That's not to pick on homosexuality. It's not, man on child, man on dog, or whatever the case may be. It is one thing. And when you destroy that, you have a dramatic impact on the quality, blah, blah, blah. He goes on about marriage there. And so, again, a lot of empathy coming out there. All this work has been done over the last few years for marriage equality in this country. Screw you guys. It's the same as fucking a dog. I don't really know what to say. This is one of perhaps the best single reasons to never vote for Rick Santorum for anything, including dog catcher, because he seems to think about sex with dogs more than most people. Next, on the link between same-sex marriage and national security. This is an interesting one. I would argue that the future of America hangs in the balance, because the future of the family hangs in the balance. Isn't that the ultimate homeland security, standing up and defending marriage? I think that you've kind of lost us if you can only defend the traditional view of marriage. It's a false one, but it's his traditional view of marriage by implying that it's crucial for national security. We need strong tanks, very well-equipped infantry, and traditional marriage, or else the Canadians will clearly invade. And so I'm glad that he's watching out for us there. Furthermore, this is a historic one on the war in Iraq. As the hobbits are going up Mount Doom, the Eye of Mordor is being drawn somewhere else. It's being drawn to Iraq. You know what? I want to keep it on Iraq. I don't want the eye to come back to the United States. Now, look, I'm going to give him a couple of points because that is an awesome, nerdy reference that he's making there. I don't know if he's directly trying to appeal to me from the past, but I love that example, and I will use it for something in the near future, don't you worry. But it's also, again, think about how callous and lacking in empathy that statement actually is. Yeah, tons of terrorists are going to Iraq and killing people, and yeah, maybe tens or possibly hundreds of thousands of Iraqi civilians are being massacred, but I'm safe. Anyway, next, on contraception. This is a controversial one. I love that we're still having a debate over whether or not contraception should be legal in America. He says, many of the Christian faith have said, well, that's okay. Contraception is okay. It's not okay. It's a license to do things in a sexual realm that is counter to how things are supposed to be. I don't know. Generally, if I just read that without the reference to contraception, I'd imagine he's talking about anal sex or something like that. But what does he mean? That generally you're supposed to pull out and this allows you to not do that? Look, he wants to win nationally. National election wants to be the president of the United States, and he thinks it's okay to try to ban contraception. I don't have a quote here on it, but he also thinks that it's a good idea to ban porn in America. I don't know if there are two things that are more popular. Maybe hamburgers. But that's about it. Contraception, porn, these are the things that we rely on to get through our busy days as Americans. Finally, and this one's near and dear to my heart, obviously, on global warming. I believe the Earth gets warmer. And I also believe the Earth gets cooler. And I think history points out that it does that, and that the idea that man, through the production of CO2, which is a trace gas in the atmosphere and the man-made part of that trace gas is itself a trace gas, is somehow responsible for climate change is, I think, just patently absurd when you consider all the other factors. El Nino, La Niña, sunspots, moisture in the air. Yeah, I don't know if there's actually much to that. Now, I have to imagine that he made these statements after a long, detailed meta-analysis of the data available on global climate change. Or perhaps not. He probably just pulled it out of his ass. I don't know if there's warming going on there, but there's obviously not much going on in his head because this is stupid. And one of the reasons I want to cover it is that I love that in the future decades, assuming that any of humanity survives the global apocalypse that will be caused by global climate change, we'll be able to look back and say, man, that idiot did not know what he was talking about. Although, to be fair, he's never going to win the presidency, and so it's likely that in 8 to 10 years, no one will remember who the hell he was. And so that is all the Rick Santorum for today. If he does run, we will have more great quotes for you because he's got decades of awesome, offensive things that he's said. And I will make it my personal statement, my personal mission, I guess, to make sure that he never comes within 100 yards of the White House.